Imagine a family whose wealth was so immense that it seemed almost unreal. A dynasty that once commanded one of the largest empires on Earth at the beginning of the 20th century. The Romanov family ruled Russia with a fortune that made kings and industrial magnates look modest in comparison. Palaces glittered with chandeliers. Ballrooms were decorated with gold leaf. And the private collection of jewels rivaled the treasuries of entire nations! But in 1917, as revolution swept across Russia, this empire of unimaginable wealth collapsed almost overnight. What followed was not just the tragic execution of the last Tsar and his family, but the disappearance of one of the greatest fortunes the world has ever known. Where did the Romanov treasure go? The question has haunted historians, treasure hunters, and collectors for more than a century, because the wealth of the Romanovs was more than money. It was a symbol of absolute power, luxury, and mystery, and today, much of it remains unaccounted for. To understand the scale of this fortune, imagine vaults filled with bars of pure gold rooms stacked with priceless Fabergé eggs, collections of diamonds and emeralds that would blind anyone who saw them, and palaces decorated with tapestries, furniture, and art collected over centuries. Tsar Nicholas II and his wife Alexandra were known for their extravagant lifestyle, commissioning jewelry and gifts without limit. Their daughters received diamond tiaras and pearl necklaces as simple birthday presents. And even the youngest son, Alexei, was showered with golden toys and encrusted icons. Estimates suggest that the Romanov family fortune could have exceeded what today would be tens of billions of dollars. Yet, when the family was taken captive by the Bolsheviks in 1917, much of that wealth was nowhere to be found. Some of it had already been smuggled out of the country, some hidden inside secret compartments in palaces, and some, according to rumor, vanished forever with loyal courtiers who tried to escape. The night of July 16th, 1918, sealed the fate of the last Romanov. In a basement in Ekaterinburg, Nicholas Alexandra, their 5 children, and their remaining loyal servants were executed by firing squad. The horror of that night is known. But what is less clear is what happened to the jewels that Alexandra had sewn into her daughter's clothing, or the gems hidden inside the corsets of the empress herself. When the Bolsheviks examined the bodies, they discovered diamonds and emeralds sewn into the fabric, making the execution even more gruesome because the jewels had deflected some bullets. But these were only fragments of what the family had once owned. If Alexandra had thought to hide jewels on her person, what else might have been hidden elsewhere? The mystery only deepens when one considers that before their capture, the Romanovs had sent trunks of valuables to trusted relatives in Europe. And some of those trunks never reached. Some historians believe that part of the Romanov treasure made its way to Switzerland, where relatives of the Tsar had access to bank accounts that still contained vast deposits of gold. Others suggest that loyal guards carried chests of valuables on trains heading toward the Europe, only for those trains to disappear into the chaos of civil war. There are even stories of carriages filled with Romanov gold sinking beneath frozen rivers as guards attempted to escape advancing Bolshevik forces. In Siberia, rumors persist of local villagers stumbling upon coins and jewels washed up by thawing snow, relics of a hidden cache lost to time. Each story adds to the mythology of the missing Romanov treasure, a fortune that could change lives even today if ever discovered. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Romanov mystery is the role of Fabergé eggs. These jeweled creations, crafted by the genius Peter Carl, were not mere ornaments, but masterpieces of art, each worth millions today. The Romanovs possessed over 50 of them, each more elaborate than the last, filled with tiny mechanical surprises and precious stones. After the revolution, some of these eggs were seized by the Bolsheviks and later sold discreetly to fund the Soviet state. A few found their way to collectors in the West, including the American oil magnate, Armand Hammer, and the Forbes family. But not all eggs were accounted for. At least 8 remain missing to this day, and their whereabouts are unknown. Were they smuggled out with other jewels? Are they hidden in vaults beneath forgotten palaces? Or are they lying in dust-covered trunks somewhere waiting to be rediscovered? Each missing Fabergé egg represents millions of dollars in lost art, but also a piece of history that connects directly to the fall of the Romanov dynasty. The scale of the Romanov wealth also extended beyond jewels and art. Nicholas II controlled personal bank accounts in Europe, rumored to contain vast sums of money. When the Bolsheviks took power, they tried to seize these assets, but many accounts were either inaccessible or had already been transferred. Some claim that members of the extended Romanov family, who fled to places like France and England, secretly withdrew portions of these fortunes, ensuring their survival while the immediate family perished. Others believe the accounts remain dormant, protected by secrecy and complicated banking laws. It is possible that billions remain unclaimed in private vaults, their true ownership hidden by a century of confusion. The Romanov treasure is more than a question of missing money. It represents the tension between unimaginable wealth and the forces that sought to destroy it. For the Bolsheviks, the treasure was not just riches, but a symbol of the corruption and inequality of Imperial Russia. Selling jewels on the black market or through discreet deals in the West became a way to finance their new regime. This is why some Romanov artifacts appear today in museums, while others are in the private collections of billionaires who paid discreetly for a slice of history. And yet, many of the most valuable items remain untraced, their existence confirmed only by old inventories or faded photographs. What makes the story even more captivating is the human dimension. Imagine being one of the guards entrusted with crates of diamonds, fleeing across snow-covered fields with Bolsheviks on your trail. Do you bury the treasure in a forest to recover it later, or abandon it to save your life? Imagine a Bolshevik officer realizing the jewel he holds in his hand could pay for a house, a lifetime of comfort, yet being forced to hand it over to the state. The chaos of revolution meant that countless treasures slipped through the cracks. Villagers found gold coins. Soldiers hid jewels in boots. Smugglers carried Fabergé eggs across borders. Each fragment tells a story, but the whole fortune remains incomplete. Some treasure hunters claim to have traced shipments of Romanov gold across Europe, pointing to suspicious transactions in Paris banks during the 1920s. Others argue that the treasure was deliberately dispersed by surviving Romanovs, spread across cousins and distant relatives to ensure it would never be fully seized. There are even conspiracy theories that the treasure was taken by foreign governments, Germany, even the United States through secret agreements with the Bolsheviks. Documents remain classified, fueling speculation that the true fate of the Romanov fortune is far stranger than anyone imagines. Over a century later, the mystery of the Romanov treasure continues to inspire novels, films, and expeditions. Treasure hunters still speculate about hidden vaults beneath palaces, lost trains filled with gold, and secret accounts in Swiss banks. Historians pore over documents, trying to track the path of diamonds and gold through the fog of war. Yet the allure of the missing fortune is not just about money. It is about what it represents. The last echo of an empire that believed in its own permanence, only to be swept away by revolution. The Romanovs lived an unimaginable luxury, but their downfall created one of history's greatest enigmas. Somewhere, perhaps, a chest of diamonds lies buried beneath Russian soil. Somewhere, a Fabergé egg sits forgotten in an attic. And somewhere, in the vaults of a bank, gold that once belonged to an emperor lies waiting, silent and untouched. The mystery endures because it is not solved. Unlike other fortunes that have been found and catalogued, the Romanov treasure remains partially in shadow. Every year, new rumors surfaced, from discoveries of hidden jewels in Russian basements to claims of long-lost bank accounts in Zurich. None have revealed the full picture, and perhaps that is what keeps the legend alive. In a world where wealth often vanishes into numbers on a screen, the idea of a tangible, glittering fortune lost to time feels almost like magic. It is a reminder that history is not just dates and names, but human stories filled with ambition, tragedy, and mystery. The Romanovs may have fallen, but their treasure, whether found or not, remains one of the greatest symbols of lost luxury the world has ever known.